This might be the Drake Clipper, or might at least come close to what it will be. This is a purely speculative video where I take everything we know at this point, try to rebuild it in 3D myself to at least have the best possible idea how big it is, and by the end maybe a good idea what could be. But I want to be transparent, this is the most mysterious teaser I have ever dealt with in Star Citizen, and for this one I did not end up with anything that I could confidently say is what the Clipper will be like. That said, I have made a lot of observations on the way that might help you get a better idea of what we can expect. And even if my final model might be miles off, I had a lot of fun analyzing this one. I thought we were done with this silhouette in particular, but since the data mined name Drake Clipper has emerged, I thought that is reason enough to have one last deep dive. This will build on my last silhouette video, but today I will try to get measurements of this as accurate as I can and have a look at how much interior space we could expect. And before I start, I heard the idea of this being another Grace Market variant and thought about it, but I believe at this point we universally agree it's a Drake. So let's start with the name, Clipper. If you did not already look it up, a Clipper was or is a sailing vessel primarily built for speed. The size and also the type is not restricted by that. Different ship types can be classified as Clippers if their main function is speed. For example, they could at the same time be cargo ships. An interesting use case were tea clippers that brought tea from China to mainly London but also the US. And in that case, speed was way more important than volume because it lost quality in transit, and New Season's tea was bought at a premium the faster it arrived. Obviously, speed might also be the most important factor if you want to transport people. Since Drake's naming usually gives a good idea of the intended role, I think it's fair to assume that this won't be a heavy fighter or a fight at all, and probably also not an industrial ship. Two of my three suggested ideas were a smaller Corsair focusing on fighting, which are already deemed unlikely because the wings are easy targets, and an industrial ship focused on ground extraction. If you still find them interesting, there's a full video on those, but I want to double down on the last one. I said big wings are an indicator for controlled, stable flying, and my first association at CitizenCon when I saw the shape was a Lambda class shuttle anyways. So I went with personal transport, first in a public function as a transport shuttle, then maybe used as a bounty hunting ship. But by now we have some more teasers. First, the appearance in the IA trailer, which does not show much. I'll get back to that one later. Only thing I want to mention here already, look at the wings, how the front is straight and the back is angled. This means that the silhouette is not facing away from us, for everyone who still defends that theory. Then we got one teaser in the monthly report, which I think shows a wing and some kind of hydraulics in the front, so it's probably a moving wing. Then another image, the weekly sneak peek, and this I think shows the top just because this is symmetrical. Relatively free of greebling I would expect on the underside, and then the logo, which also makes more sense on the top. That in the background could be the folded down wing, which indicates it's at roughly 90 degrees to the body. But what I mostly take from this is the scale. You can tell from the metal texture, the rivets and the details in general that this is a pretty small section. For example, compared to how much is going on at the Corsair's top. The other thing I take from both of these is the color. Mostly bare metal with a yellow accent. That could rule out industrial ships. For Drake those are usually mostly or completely yellow, but also dedicated cargo, which would probably be red. We have the Ironclad Assault as an exception for yellow, but again that is mostly yellow. Honestly, by far the best match. Bare metal with a few yellow accents is still the Corsair. All that said, it is also the color scheme of this year's Best in Show paint, so it might be an IAE exclusive launch paint to throw us off, and the base paint could be anything really. I mean, look at the Gladiator. Very different light situation, so the tone looks slightly different, but mostly dark, bare metal, bold yellow stripes, and then some thin yellow stripes outlining specific elements. And just while I was finishing up this video, there was a third teaser, this one labeled Go Your Own Way. I don't see anything in it that changes anything, I'm going to say in this video. So I don't think we can take a clear role from this. So let's get back to the silhouette and try to figure out the scale as good as possible. I had already aligned a camera and 3D scene for the first silhouette videos, but I wanted to double check the scaling. I have a person in here scaled at a little over 1.80 m, Then this smaller crate on the left, which I now notice being too short for the 2 SEU crate I expected it to be, but with the height matching so well, I assume we are looking at a 4 SEU crate here. There's another SEU crate looking shape on the right, about twice the height, so I assume 24 SEU. Noticed it's too long, but also too short for a 32, so I think it's just a 32 SEU at an angle. Now, this alignment, and specifically the precision of everything I'm going to say, stands and falls with the focal length of the camera. It determines how big everything feels. Unlike my Galaxy Paladin or Ironclad rebuilds, there's barely anything in this scene to accurately match it, but I used all the other silhouette shots too, which all have a similar setup. But that means there's plenty of room for error here, and also, even if I was completely accurate, this is over a year old. Ship metrics could have changed since then. Before I start building, let's see how big other ships would look from this perspective. Starting with the cutter, I'm always surprised how big that is, but it is 20 meters long. The cutlass shows that this silhouette is smaller than I initially expected. The Herald is comparatively similar in size, I guess, but the Corsair shows just how small this might end up being. And from there, let's start kit bashing this together. As you can see, the wing shape is very different from the Corsair. That's what I meant in the beginning. The front is straight and the back is angled, whereas the Corsairs are the other way around. So I took the big Corsair wing, mirrored it, and scaled it down to about 70% in height. That would make the back wing a little less than 17 meters compared to the Corsair's 23.5 meters. For the front, I used the same big Corsair wing because the smaller ones are very triangular, and this one is scaled to about 50% in length. So I estimate this at about 12 meters at the clipper. That was the easy bit. What's next? The big circular thing under the big wing. In my concept, I read that as an airlock, so I took off the airlock straight from the caterpillar next to the person for scale reference, but it's too small. I would have to scale it up to 130%, which is not the issue. A transport should allow more people at the same time, but the angle is a little off too. I would have to rotate this inward to match the shape, which obviously makes no sense. Rotating it outward maybe, but not inward. Could be an alignment error on my end, or it's something else. For example, another big engine, similar to their placement on the Corsair right next to the wings, just round. Next, I interpreted this here as landing gear, so I added some, and notice how that almost fills out the whole shape. Meaning, even though the silhouette is super blocky, this could be very intricate detail, even fine enough to fold away, and not be part of the final silhouette at all. The cockpit, part of me still believes that this shape here in the silhouette is a red herring, just because it would be the only silhouette to feature visible windows, but for now I went with something kinda matching. And from there I just placed parts from different Drake ships to slap together something that looks similar to what I read in there and based those concept sketches on. Lastly, there's this strong straight line at the bottom, which I interpreted as a third wing back then. And I do still have to admit that the angle works, even though I have to admit it's special. This all matches the silhouette very well, but that does not have to mean anything. And no matter how far you open the wings, it always looks weird. But at the same time, unique, which could be a good thing, I guess. What throws me off most is the offset in the wings, one further to the front than the other. But having them on the same axis would mean that they had to be extremely far apart, and I just don't see it being that wide either. Also, there has been concept art for the Corsair showing wings offset just like that, so I can't really rule it out. Also, the weird harsh ending back. It just ends like a brick. But look how even a small fin would instantly be visible from this perspective. There can't be much hiding there. So I think bold flat rear just like the Corsair is likely. I'm just wondering why it's so short. But before I look at alternatives, there's one thing I'm relatively confident about, which is the scale. So let's have a quick look at what this could fit. Not a lot of cargo, that's for sure. Even two 32 SEU crates would be a stretch, maybe just one. That is in height. The thing could be pretty wide, or at least wide enough to have two next to each other, meaning a total of 128 SEU. But looking back at the other ships I showed at the beginning, I expect this to be at the very low end of a medium ship. Now, as I said before, I'm not really happy with the result. It is interesting, and I'm sure the CIG artists could even make it pretty, but it does not feel accurate. Also, let's go back to the IAE teaser video. If I put my creation here, it does not hold up too well. The third wing could be hidden behind the second one, but I don't believe it myself. And also this body feels a lot longer and also flatter than mine, even though it's hard to say. One thing I can say, in case you were wondering, it's not just a Corsair. Again, the wing orientation gives that away, as well as the wing length. So here are my final thoughts. Maybe it's a lot flatter, and what we see here on the bottom, what I interpreted as a wing, could be a big folding door to open a cargo section at the bottom for easy drop-offs. Or I could be way off because the ship is a lot less static than I expected, meaning that the wings are on the side when landed, but then it all rotates somehow to have them at top and bottom. That might match this shape better, but feels a little too fragile and also very over-engineered for a Drake design. Lastly, there's simply the chance that it has changed massively during development in the last year, has grown a lot, and everything I just said was wrong. But so far all silhouettes, even the ones we had trouble explaining like the Guardian MX, turned out to be very accurate in retrospective. And that's all I got. I can't wait to find out at this point. Having this silhouette in the back of my head for over a year now was both frustrating and a lot of fun. I still hope for a cool passenger transport that can also transport a bit of cargo with it, and for a bounty hunting variant that, just like a Razor's Crest, has an interesting interior layout, because I've heard there have been cryopods found in the latest Evo builds, just saying, but ultimately I think it might just be a small cargo ship. At this point, a great thank you to all my Patreon and channel members who enable me to put the extra effort and render time into these kinds of videos. I appreciate it a lot, especially because I have not been releasing videos regularly, but instead focused on building an ironclad. Enjoy IAE, keep an eye out for my next video looking at another small cargo ship. Thank you for watching, and see you in the verse.